What is up, guys, and welcome to my pick'ems for the Legend stage of the PGL Major Antwerp 2022. First of all, I want to really give a big thank you to everyone who watched my pick'ems day for the Challenger stage. It became my most viewed video very fast. Of course, I expect a lot of people who don't usually watch my content who googled pick'em content found my video, and that's why it got quite a lot of views. Of course, I want to also thank you for watching all of my videos. It's great that I'm getting a bit more of a following than at the beginning, and that's all thanks to you, of course. But let's get to the main point of the video. We've got the Legend stage of the Major. Pretty big stuff. And the pick'ems. So I kinda looked at, I think I already went through this and put the higher seeded team, not quite, okay. So there's a couple, I'm just doing this based off HLTV rankings. I think this is this way around, this is this way around. And basically I'm looking at which teams should go 3-0, for example, FaZe and Navi. Not that I'm gonna pick them 3-0, just kind of looking which teams might play each other. I don't want to put too much weight on this because, like, there's always gonna be upsets at some stage here. It's just inevitable that some upsets are bound to happen, but how many? That's always a question, right? Something like this. So, like, I don't know how much I should care about this. I guess I can kind of talk about each team here and the initial matchups and what I kind of expect of the teams. So Heroic usually is a team that's gonna probably make the playoffs, and then they're gonna like struggle there. I would expect them to make playoffs most of the time this time around as well. They have the highest seed, so they're gonna get a round 2 matchup that should be a bit easier, but I mean, it could be Navi G2, for example. Yeah, I guess it's Navi or G2 most of the time, right? Depending a bit on matchups, like if Vitality wins, it's gonna be Vitality. But yeah, Heroic I would expect will make it through to the playoffs. Probably not 3-0, but 3-1, 3-2 maybe. Liquid, I don't think we'll make it through just because of the quality of some of the teams here. Not the highest expectations, but they might squeak through. I mean, they went 0-2 at the beginning of the last stage, and then they kind of reverse swept. Pretty good of them, but I don't have the highest expectations. CPH could definitely surprise. They have a pretty nice seed, or very good seed for this. Last time they were super close to making it to the champion stage or to the playoffs. This time I think it might be a bit tougher. I think there's a lot of competition, whereas last time there was like Navi very high above everyone else, and then some other teams who you would expect to make it, and CPH had maybe a better shot last time than this time around, I think. But it's still very possible. BNE, it's been really cool watching them get this far, but I don't know if they have what it takes to get further. Big have like a decent shot of making it through. They also have a great seed to help them, and an easy first matchup, relatively. So I don't know. I it's very hard with these. Some of these teams are very much on the cusp for me of maybe they make it, maybe they don't, and then there's a couple teams you definitely think should make it through, and then there's some teams like Heroic, CPH, and Big. I think all of them are teams that could make it, but don't always make it. Just in general, this is going to be very difficult pick'ems to like probably the most difficult pick'ems we've seen for a while. Imperial probably the weakest team out of the ones that are left. I wouldn't be too surprised if they got an upset win against even Big or a couple other teams, but I don't see them going through like pretty much ever. There's a chance, but it's a very small chance. Cloud9 is one of the teams who I do think should always make it. I think their floor is too high. They are too consistently strong enough to make it to playoffs at least. Outsiders, they're like, of course, the stuff with maybe Yekindar leaving or the entire team disbanding after the major, that's gonna impact them. I did think they would make it through, and I was right in that. I am not surprised that they got this far, but it's probably too much of an ask to get them through. But it could happen. It's a bit close. Whether they're also in the mix of teams that could make it through, but I guess a bit lower than some of the others in my eyes. Furia, another team that could make it through, but not always. Like, I think there's, I'll kind of group them when I get to the actual pick'em stage, as these teams are all possible playoffs candidates, but not always gonna make it. Spirit have an outside shot at making it through, kind of like, I think, a bit weaker than Copenhagen Flames in terms of making it through, but just with the level of teams here, I think it's gonna be too much of an ask. FaZe and ENCE in the first round is pretty, like, there's two really insane matchups in this first round. In FaZe ENCE and Na'Vi G2, you have to remember these are best of ones as well, so it's very 50-50 who's gonna win these matchups. I think both FaZe and ENCE should always make it through to the next stage. In terms of fantasy, which I'll make 2 videos today on both Ego App and HLTV fantasy as well. I will be talking in those videos a bit about why this kind of sucks for for fantasy, that these really good teams face off in the best of ones, because it's very random and you always want to have the 3-0 teams in your lineup. What else? So yeah, I think both of these teams make it through. NiP Vitality, I think NiP have a pretty good chance of making it, as well as Vitality. I'm not yet super convinced that Vitality is, like, I don't know, even like locked in for playoffs or anything. Like, I think some people have already gone like, okay, Vitality is back, they're on track. I don't think that after just going 3-0 here. It's a good showing, of course, to go 3-0, but they could still struggle here, let's say. I think this is a very close matchup again. And then Na'Vi G2. Na'Vi should always make it through. They have such a high floor, at least should have such a high floor, that there shouldn't be any struggles. G2 should also be a team with a high enough floor, but we have seen them struggle, for example, in EPL. So let's hope that doesn't happen again. They were looking very solid, except for that one Spirit game in the last stage. They should make it through again. Now let's get to the meat and potatoes, I guess. I'll start with the 0-3. So the teams I would consider here are like BNE, but I think they're gonna actually win one of these. Imperial, Liquid actually is one of the teams. I didn't talk too much about Liquid, but I think they are too volatile. I think they could lose to any. They are just weaker than a lot of these teams at the moment, but they could still, like, they have the firepower to make stuff happen. They have Shox was pretty good in the last stage. OC, Naf, and Elige are really good, and then Nitro was also pretty clutch, at least in that last series they played. But I still think this could be too difficult for them, so I don't think outsiders ever go 0-3, but it could be Spirit, Imperial, BNE, Liquid. I think one of or two of those teams most likely go 0-2. And then it's just which ones, like, if they played against each other. Let's say they're all going 0-2 and they play each other. Which do I think is the weakest? Because I don't know which team's gonna, like, play which. I would say the weakest is probably Imperial. I think it almost kind of depends on which teams play against each other. Like, I think Imperial probably would beat Spirit, but Spirit would be better against like BNE or Liquid, or have a higher shot of beating those teams. I don't want to go Liquid 03. I think I go Spirit 03. I think that's the... I mean, Dexter was looking so good last stage, but it was... Maybe I do go Imperial. It's just... It's very difficult to say, because these teams have, of course, all shown pretty good stuff in the last stage, right? Like, I would say all three of these teams, like Spirit, Imperial, and BNE, can be very happy with the result already of getting to this stage. I would say Imperial is probably my 03. And we have some teams who I think are definitely gonna make it through. I think these three should be the most secure ones to make it through. I don't think there's many questions around them. Their floor should be high enough to make it through to the next stage. I think G2 should also make it. 3 more slots plus the 3-0. Vitality 3-0 is almost pretty enticing. They're playing NiP in the first round. I think ENCE makes it almost... Like, they didn't quite make it last time. Like, last major, I think they went 3-0 in the first stage, and then like 2-3 or 0-3, I can't remember. They didn't make it through the like second stage at least. I'd really struggled there, but I think the team is just a lot stronger this time around than they were that time around, and they have been looking way too strong for me to not have them in these 7 teams that will advance. I would say Vitality is in this mix of teams that I do expect to make it. Heroic could be our 3-0 pick. I'm not against that. They are the kind of team that could struggle or could just destroy. They're usually very consistent. I might just move them here. Also, NIP, I think, is just the best. It's between like Furia is a very decent pick over NIP as well. There's definitely like some of these teams, like you would kind of want NIP to make it through. I just think the fact that they don't have a main AWPer is probably too much of a weakening factor. Or like Ezetag is their main AWP, but he's not really an AWPer. I think I will... I honestly think probably one of like Big and Copenhagen Flames, or at least Big Copenhagen Flames and Ninjas makes it through, because there's always going to be something I have wrong. Like almost always. But... yeah. But I think this is pretty solid. I really don't want to put a good, like my favorite teams in the 3-0 bracket. Because like FaZe Navi G2 and it was FaZe versus ENCE and Navi G2 the first matchup, so any of those could go 0-1 and then it's not 3-0. I think Cloud9 is pretty locked in. I'd be surprised if all of these 5 teams don't make it, and then we would get the 5 card pick'ems, which is what I really care about. Do I really think Heroic should be my 3-0, or should I maybe go for... Maybe I should go for like Furia as my 3-0. There's a chance that Furia go 3-0. I think it comes down to who do I think is more locked in for playoffs. I would say Heroic is probably more locked into playoffs than Furia. I wouldn't be that surprised if Furia gets snubbed here, but I hope they make it. I like their playstyle. I think I'll stick with this. I mean, The only thing I'm still kind of I'm happy with the teams that I've picked to go through. The question I have is like which team should be 03. Imperial play big in the first round. There's a pretty decent chance of an upset. Heroic could be upset by Liquid for sure. Iria should beat Spirit. Cloud9 outsiders. Tough because the highest seed, some of the highest seed teams are gonna get, or some of the highest seed teams are not like what I would consider the best teams. I'll stick with this. I'm happy with these picks. And we can use this as kind of a guideline for our fantasy. So kind of like last time, I'm not gonna talk too in depth about the players or about the teams in my actual fantasy videos, and I'll just kind of go directly into picking my teams. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as you seem to enjoy my first stage or challenger stage pick'ems. I try to have pretty informed takes about which teams I think are gonna make through. And when I'm looking at this, I feel pretty happy with this, and I'm quite confident that I'll get the 5 correct pick'ems that I need to get to the next stage in hopes of getting a diamond coin. But yeah, if you enjoy this kind of content, remember to like and subscribe. I will be posting 2 more videos today about HLTVs and Ego apps fantasies, and if you enjoy that kind of content, remember to check that out as well. But either way, thank you guys for watching, and goodbye.